Geek Vibes Live is rated G for geek.
Hey, this is Matt Lesher.
This is Phil Lamar.
Hey, this is Rodney Taylor, a.k.a. the Penguin from Gotham, and you are listening to Geek Vibes Live.
Here we go. Hey, I'm Jason Inman, and you're listening to Geek Vibes. It's geeky, and it's vibey. It's awesome.
Welcome to an all-new episode of Geek Vibes Live. Thank you very much, Jason Inman. That drop actually was funny because it took a few times. For some strange reason, when we ask celebrities for a drop, they always get Geek Vibes Nation wrong or Geek Vibes Live wrong. I don't know why. It seems relatively easy to say, but I have at least 15 drops of people getting it just drastically wrong. But Jason Inman is indeed correct. It is geeky, it is vibey, and it is an all-new episode of Geek Vibes Live. Today's episode, we will be talking about what grinds our gears in the superhero or just movie and TV world in general. But without further ado, let me introduce my panel, starting with Tia. What's going on, Tia?
Hey, guys. How's everyone doing? First, I'd like to start the show that if you're self-isolating and you're wondering, what the hell do I watch? Because seriously, it seems like nothing new is on. Netflix has a documentary series called Tiger King, and it is probably the wildest and craziest shit that you'll ever watch. So check it out.
Yes, huge shout out to Tia, who has been literally dropping content by the second, whether it's an article or a review or a top 10. It literally seems like Tia is killing it right now with the content. Make sure you guys check out everything that Tia has. It's a lot, so I better not hear like, oh, what can I be doing? You have plenty to pick from. I will say, though, Tia, it is really weird that a lot of these streaming services that have shows that are like already made aren't just putting them out now. I mean, like,
very weird.
To be completely honest with you, by the time this thing is completely over, none of us will want to be in the house enough to actually watch any of this stuff come late summer or early fall. Like, we'll all be outside, like, making up for, like, however long this thing lasts. So just drop it now. Like, the fact that The Boys isn't out now is ridiculous. Like, just drop it now. What will it hurt?
Listen, all of the nerds who are sitting there going, oh, all I want to do is play video games, they're going to be like, I really love some fresh air.
Yeah, no, that'll never happen. But sure, yeah. Those are not the people I was referring to. But no. Also, Dom, what's going on, Dom?
Hey, everybody. I'm good. I'm not feeling the same ills as most people in our country because I guess my job is considered essential. So I've been at work every day. So I don't feel it. I don't think I'd mind it too much because I'm somewhat of a hermit anyway. So it would just give me more time to kind of catch up on some movies I've wanted to watch. But yeah, I am enjoying the lack of traffic though. So that's kind of my silver lining.
Yeah, I will say I am not the biggest people person. It sounds weird coming from me, but I'm not the biggest people person. So you telling me for months on end I can like isolate myself and get people at doses, I am all for it. I mean, if we could cure this and still isolate ourselves, I would be very much happy with that. I would not complain, not once. There would be no complaints from me. I'll take that. But no, it is crazy because I have a friend that worked at GameStop, and like all but recently they considered GameStop essential, and I'm like, not really. I don't know if GameStop forgot this, but we could buy games like on our system. So I don't really need you right now. But I am very glad that they decided that they were going to not really be open because just you're putting people at risk for no reason. Like, it's video games. You're not an essential. Like, that was ridiculous. But welcoming back to Geek Vibes Live from Kinda Nerdy Girls, KJ and Patrick. What's going on?
Hello. Yes, very excited to be here. And thanks for letting me bring, we call him Producer Patches on the show, so you may have to get used to me calling him Patches instead of Patrick. Yeah, we're essentially completely opposite. I've been in quarantine for 14 days because I have asthma, and my real job is with Make-A-Wish, so I can't be sick or around kids. So I'm going a little bit crazy, and then Producer Patches is also essential, like Dom, aren't you?
yeah. I'm kind of a big deal. I work in the HVAC field, so that everyone always needs heating and cooling. But I do feel bad for KJ here because she has been. She's getting stir crazy. I was video chatting with my parents earlier, and I'm looking right in front of me on the couch. She's just sitting there kicking her legs up in the air, just like,
I gotta get my steps in. Gotta do something, man.
Yeah, I will say this this epidemic has shown me that a lot of people don't know what to do with themselves, and I'm kind of like, what do you do on like a Sunday where you're like, there's no work, you're at home and you're supposed to just relax? I'm like, all this is an extended Sunday. I'm going to be completely honest. I've blocked everyone that has a TikTok. I've blocked everyone that has a Thriller. I've blocked every celebrity that uses it. I've grown utterly sick of seeing it. Mainly because it's like, if you're a celebrity, you have the means to really, truly not be bored. So the fact that you're doing this is sickening. And to everyone else, you make me sick also. I hate TikTok. So just wanted to put that out there. I wanted it on air, on record. So if any of you do a TikTok and then you're like, why does it look like Jawan unfollowed me? That would be why.
Just so you know, Jawan, I actually downloaded TikTok today. That's where I'm at in my life. Because I was like, I don't know, everyone seems to be doing it and enjoying themselves, so maybe that's what I should be doing.
Yeah, no, I legit want to open up a dare for people that do TikTok. Like, just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean you have to do it. Like, if everyone started to do drugs, you wouldn't do it too. And then I realized, like, this generation, they would do it. Like, they legit would go, oh, no, I saw, like, 300 people doing it, so I'm going to get on the internet and do it. And I was like, so disappointed with our generation, man. This is horrible. But all right, let's get into it. Let's get into what grinds our gears, since I pretty much threw this on you guys as a topic, since there's not a lot of news in the geek world. Pretty much our news is, hey, it got pushed back. Hey, it's not happening this year. And hey, everything you thought you were going to do, it's not going to happen. So instead of talking about that depressing news, I wanted to open up a little bit, and like I said at the top of the show, what grinds our gears? So pretty much anything that's been bothering us in the superhero world or just movies and TV in general. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to talk about the DCEU. It is still called that because Jim Lee called it that. I don't care what anyone says. He calls it the DCEU, so that's what it is. My biggest issue with the DCEU is that even after the whole Zack debacle, this universe still has potential to properly build itself. And I think they kind of are starting to overthink themselves. And what I mean by that is the fact that you don't have a Superman movie happening tomorrow. Well, obviously, with all this chaos, it wouldn't. But you not having a Superman movie being kind of greenlit. You not having a Green Lantern movie be greenlit is really bothersome, mainly because I kind of feel like, and this is what they said they're doing, they're approaching their movies, they kind of just want to take a movie at a time. And albeit that's what they should have done instead of jumping into doing a Superman movie to start a universe, then a team-up movie, then another team-up movie, then solo movies. Yeah, we've been saying this for years, DC. You should have operated the other way around. But we're here now. So instead of shying away from it, it's okay to just do solo movie, and then boom, team up movie. Instead, we got a Batman in what world we don't know. We just saw Birds of Prey, and we had a director who pretty much said, no, it's kind of like its own thing. Well, no, I kind of need to know, like, does it take place, like, right after Suicide Squad? Like, where is this movie taking place? We also saw Harley Quinn in a lot of set photos of Suicide Squad 2. So does that take place after Birds of Prey? A lot of things are just unnecessarily confusing, and I don't think it needs to be. So my mindset for DC has always been this. Everyone's always said DC needs a Kevin Feige. I've disagreed about that wholeheartedly from the beginning. I don't think you do. I think all DC needs is, if you want to take it a movie at a time, the only people I should hear from is your EP and your director, as far as vision for what they're doing with that specific project. And that way it's not putting pressure on, well, is this setting up Justice League? Is this setting up this? Is it setting up that? You're literally just saying, hey, our focus is on Wonder Woman 84. That's it. When that's over, then we can talk about the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So what I would like to see DC do is bring in Robert Pattinson's Batman. Just come out and establish that he's part of the DCEU. Now, you don't have to put any pressure on Matt Reeves. Matt Reeves does not have to have a newspaper clipping about Superman in his movie or mentioning of Superman in his movie. Allow that to be something that's set up when they decide they want to do a Justice League movie. But I need to know that my world connects. I need a Superman. I need a Green Lantern. I need my Aquaman, my Wonder Woman, and my Flash. Shazam, I could 100% live without. I honestly would prefer if he's replaced by Martian Manhunter sooner rather than later. But that's a completely different story. Establish that we have a shared universe. Get it out of the way. That way, if Margot Robbie says they were greenlit to do Gotham City Sirens, we're not now worrying about, well, who's our Selena Kyle? Is it the Selena Kyle that we're getting in the Batman? I feel as though DC every day creates more issues than they solve. And the easiest way to do that is just tell everyone, hey, it's a shared universe, but we're only taking it a movie at a time. That's what Feige did early on with the MCU. You didn't hear anything about an Avengers movie when Iron Man came out. You knew it was, it was a goal of theirs because you saw Fury at the end. But no one was coming in saying, like, once it ended before the end credits scene, like, yo, they're going to be doing, like, Captain America next and Thor. It was just a movie at a time. They didn't even know what Iron Man was going to be. So that's how DC should approach it, take it a movie at a time, but let us know that it's all connected. When we decide we want to do a Justice League movie, you guys don't have to worry about whether or not they're all part of each other. They are, and we're just going to take it a movie at a time. Tia, I'll start with you. Did you have anything you wanted to throw in about that?
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm not as invested in the DCEU really as, say, I am with, like, the MCU, with it connecting. I was perfectly fine, say, with, like, Joker being its own entity. Henry Cavill was great as Superman, but I'm not here pining for him to come back, right? He's Geralt of Rivia, and I'm perfectly fine with him being that. I think in the DCEU, the thing that frustrates me the most right now is the Suicide Squad corner of the universe, because it's like, that I liked the 2016 Suicide Squad. I know that other people didn't. We've talked about a plethora of times, but it's almost like silly how much not only Warner Brothers but the directors of the other movies are acting as if like Suicide Squad was literally the worst trash bag freaking movie ever, and they have to sit there and say, no, our movie isn't a sequel. Yes, it is. It is a direct sequel. Birds of Prey takes place after the first Suicide Squad. The definition of a sequel is a movie that comes like after, the events are after. And then obviously Suicide Squad 2 is going to be after. It's like, it's a sequel. It's okay. Like, all right, not everyone, and like me either, right? Thor: The Dark World was terrible. It's trash, right? But no one sits there. Like, Taika Waititi didn't say this. Thor Ragnarok wasn't a sequel to The Dark World. It is a sequel. That's a trilogy. So it's like, it bothers me, the Suicide Squad realm. Like, it's okay. There were imperfections in the 2016 movie, and we grow from it. It's so obvious that they're sequels because you keep the same exact character with the same exact actress in it, and it's annoying to me. Like, I'm annoyed by it. So I guess that's mostly what grinds my gears with the DCEU, like just having to hear constantly from the directors about how much they don't want to associate with the first Suicide Squad, but clearly Margot Robbie did enough in that for people to want to continue to use her. Just say it's a sequel. It all connects within the same universe, and we can acknowledge that there were a lot of imperfections in the 2016 version. So that's my comment really there. Besides that, I like the other characters, let me not say that because I'm going to be bullshitting myself, but I like Jason Momoa as Aquaman. Gal Gadot is great as Wonder Woman. I could do without a Shazam sequel, honestly. I mean, I didn't hate the movie, but I could do without it. But I don't know. I feel like I'd like Matt Reeves' Batman to stay separate. How do you explain that? How do you explain that?
Okay. Here's the thing, okay? Because I've said this numerous times to people.
Was I wrong on so many levels?
Oh, Tia, I don't have the time to go into just purely you telling me you don't need Superman or Henry Cavill as Superman, right? Like that. No, I need that way more than I need another season of The Witcher.
My whole
I need
point
Superman
is that he's grown. He's grown from Superman. He is Geralt. He's getting his action start. Like, he's grown from it. So it's like, honestly, it's like, you're probably I know that Henry Cavill sat there and said he would like to do it, he can do it, but I doubt you're ever going to get it. Just like, and Juwan, you know how much I love John Bernthal as Frank Castle, but I am going to sit here and I'm going to say I am probably never going to see John Bernthal come back as Frank Castle. That's probably something that's never going to happen. And I just have to accept that to make the hurt, a little less.
Yeah, but the difference is, excuse me, he was the only reason why John Bernthal wouldn't still be the Punisher is because it's being the whole rights of the show is being given to someone completely new. Nothing has really drastically changed in the DCEU. Sure, you have a few new faces, but I mean, you're not telling me that I'm not getting a Superman anytime soon. Like that's ridiculous. You telling me that I have to wait 5-10 years to get another Punisher? Cool. He's not like an integral part of like an Avengers team or anything like that. But you telling me I get Flash, I get Shazam, I get Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, but no Superman? That sounds like the most craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. So that is drastically different because that'd be like if someone said when they were first doing the MCU, there was only one Captain America movie, and now we're kind of like, maybe we don't really need Captain America right now. We're talking about maybe making him, a woman. That's how ridiculous it sounds. So we absolutely need Superman. There's no reason why you kind of tippy-toe on that. You either tell us, hey, we're recasting Henry, or Henry's coming back. That's the only two things I want to hear. I don't want to hear you trying to sell me Supergirl when I haven't really successfully had a good enough Superman. Give me that first, then we can build. But as far as explaining the Batman, don't need to. You don't need to explain it. It's done. It's done, bends out. This is Batman now. That's as far as you need to go for explaining. I don't need a full, dialogue as to why he's younger now. I don't really care. Just tell me that he's part of the DCEU. I can see him interact with Wonder Woman or Flash, whatever. Or if he's not, you are going to have a tough time selling me these movies if you're telling me, hey, as soon as all three of these movies are done, we're going to be looking for another Batman. At that point, you lost me. You really did. All my excitement kind of just goes. Of course, I'm going to see these movies because I have to support Batman because he's legit my father. But as far as me caring about this, as far as the universe, I can't. And last thing, Tia, as far as Suicide Squad, the reason why I think they're making a big deal about it, it's not necessarily directly a sequel, even though I agree with you, it is a sequel. If I see one familiar face, it's a sequel. But I think the reason why they're making a big deal is that it's one of those team-up movies to where it's like the Russo brothers, when they took over the Avengers, it's drastically different than what Whedon did. But they didn't go out and make a big deal about it. But I think the reason why you have to do it now for DC is because it is a changing of the guard. So I'm pretty sure James Gunn is going to be doing things drastically different, and he kind of doesn't want anyone kind of going like, is this part of what this was building? And it's like, no, whatever David Ayer was doing is what David Ayer was doing. Consider that a one-off thing. Go ahead.
And I'm sorry, it's just, I'm going to use, like, the Thor example again, right? It's like, we were all bored with the Thor movies. Thor: Dark World was absolutely horrific. And then, Taika Waititi came, and I'm sure that, like me, a lot of people are like, who the hell is Taika Waititi? And then they released that first trailer, and you're like, holy shit, this looks fucking amazing. And it's like, I just feel that and we know James Gunn. We know his style. We already know it's going to be different than David Ayer's. It's like, we're going to see the trailer, and we're going to love it. We're not even going to, like me at least, I'm not even going to think about it. I'm still going to sit there and go, it's a sequel.
I don't disagree. It is a sequel. I think he just kind of wants you to know, well, let me not say he, because he hasn't really spoken on it much, but I think the idea of it is for people to kind of realize you have to disassociate yourself from whatever the first one was doing to whatever this one was doing. And we won't get into my feelings on the first Suicide Squad movie. That'll be another episode here. But no, I think that's the underlying thing. But as long as James Gunn doesn't make a big deal about it, I think we can kind of just block out everyone else who's trying to create controversy between the two movies. But all right, Tia, I'll go to you now. Besides me, what grinds your gears in this superhero or movie and TV world?
I have to say in general, I don't know. I have like two things that grind my gear, and I'm like trying to sit here and like, all right, I guess I'll sit here and say, I don't like when we all have our ships, right? Like fan shipping and shit like that. Like, we all do it. We're all sitting out here, like looking at two characters on screen and wanting them to be together, and it doesn't happen. It's like not a big deal, but it's like it grinds my gears when you have fans and then even actual actors who kind of feed into that. Like, all right, the recent example is it's perfectly fine if you want to ship Captain America and Bucky. That's your right. I will read the fan fiction. But it was like 100% never going to happen in the MCU. And people getting so pissed that Steve ended up with Bucky at the end. Like, and then calling it bad writing, saying that Steve didn't stay with Bucky, and then even Sebastian Stan coming out and saying how, like, retweeting or re-Instagramming that one person's post about how it was bad writing. I'm like, that was never going to happen. Like, I'll sit there and say that, like, my little fangirl in me shipped Steve and Black Widow. And I knew that 100% that was never going to happen. I didn't get pissed when it didn't happen. So that's just one example that I can use. It's like, that's in general with these, like, superhero movies and stuff. It's like, you have to be accepting when certain things don't happen. Like, I'll say that the only thing that I got a little pissed at is, Frank Castle and Karen Page from the Punisher series, because anyone who watched it in that second season, their scene when they're literally touching foreheads to each other, and I'm like, they want to kiss so badly, and then that stupid teenager has to walk into the room. It's like, that's the only way that I'll get pissed about this. But it's like, I understand when I don't, like, directors shouldn't always give in to what the fans want. And it's like, I understand they're not going to go in that direction. And the reactions of the fans and then the actors who kind of want to stoke the fire. when you didn't get your way. It's kind of childish to me. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm going to come out here on air right now and say 100% Steve and Bucky were never going to kiss on screen. I'm sorry that you wanted to see Chris Evans and Sebastian Stan kiss. They're very good-looking men. I understand the want, but it was never going to happen. So that's what grinds my gears.
I don't understand the want. I don't understand where they even got that from. I never once saw them interact on screen and was like, yo, they totally love each other. Like, I never felt that. So I don't know where that came from.
Because I feel that fans, when they see things like that, they never understand that people can have platonic friendships. It's like, I almost feel that it's like, do you not have that in real life, like a friend that you would do absolutely 100% anything for and not have sexual feelings for them? I have one of those friends. I guess other people don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really weird. I mean, I thought it was weird when people were like, oh, no, Poe and Finn, you know, they're definitely going to be together. And then I was like, why did you think that? I was like, why did you think that? They were like, oh, you didn't see when, like, Poe bit his lip when he saw Finn? I'm like, what? I'm like, no, I didn't see that. That's, like, such a weird thing to look for. I'm like, are you sure he bit his lip? And they're like, yeah, he bit his lip. I'm like, all right, that's strange. But, no, listen, I get it. People want representation. I understand. On a lesser degree, I was talking to Joel about how if they ever do Miles Morales, instead of Miles like he is in the comics being half black and half Hispanic, they should go out on a limb and just make him 100% Hispanic. You know, Hispanics don't really have representation in the superhero world. That's like a liberty that you should take so you can kind of help on the idea of representation. But if you're saying you want representation for same-sex couples and stuff like that in the superhero world, I would then tell you, why don't we bring in characters that are same-sex couples in the comics and, you know, kind of, you know, bring them to light. But no, I would have never liked the idea of you telling me that Captain America was, you know, in love with Bucky, because it's like the weirdest thing. It would just be so weird. And it would honestly be forced. Like, there's nothing, yeah, it would have been 100% forced. I think Poe and Finn would have been 100% forced, because it would have been out of nowhere. Like, picture if, like, at the end of Civil War, like, Cap shows up to Bucky's cell, he opens it and they kiss. Picture how weird you would have felt at that moment. It was like, what the hell was that? Like, there's no setup for that. So no, I'm completely with you, Tia. That does grind my gears. It does definitely grind my gears. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and this is coming from someone who would love, like, better LGBT representation. Like, I think that, say, with you had characters in the Marvel Defenders universe, right? Like Jerry Hogarth, and then they kind of played around with it with Shades in Luke Cage season 2. It's like, yeah, it's like representation, but you know, there's a difference between like representation and then just the fans like wanting to ship. Like, I bet KJ can completely agree. I don't know how she stands on this, but I know she's a Supernatural fan, and for us Supernatural fans, we know that like the number one trending ship is Destiel, and it's like, I don't know how you feel about that, but it's like when fans like want ships so badly to come together, it's like, I don't know, I just don't like that. But yes, like Juwan, 100% like more LGBT like representation. Like I personally, I don't know about you guys, but I can't wait to see all the angry freaking like moms that are going to come out of the woodwork for the Eternals. It's going to be hilarious, just to see like how angry they all get, because, and you know, Deadpool, like the second movie, just had such a flawless, effortless like same-sex couple. It's like, yes, more of that, but the ships like sometimes just drive me insane. This is coming from someone who like looks at people and like, oh, they could be like totally together, but I'm not going to get upset if it doesn't happen on screen. So that grinds my gears. I'm sorry.
No. I like I said, I think representation is important, but I don't think you should force it. I thought Shades was forced in Luke Cage, and it was so uncomfortable. Every scene watching them together, I was just so uncomfortable. Mainly because it wasn't like, if you had laid some of the seeds for it in season 1, to where we were kind of looking at Shades and we were like, I don't know, maybe Shades is gay. Then it's like when you see it, you're like, okay, all right. I maybe felt like it was possible, but when they just threw it on you, it was kind of like, all right, was this just like a prison passion, or is he like really into guys? And I feel like that was never really acknowledged. So that's what kind of made it weird for me. But no, representation is very much important. I've been talking about representation for forever. But KJ and Patrick, to Tia's point of shipping, does that grind you guys' gears, or do you not really get bothered by it that much?
I think when it overshadows just, the enjoyment of the storytelling, yes, like stop trying to make something out of nothing. And honestly, like, when you were talking about Star Wars, like the Poe and Finn thing, I never saw that, but I also never saw Rey and Ben, and then they were kissing, and I was like, what the hell just happened? I mean, literally, I can't tell you the last time I was in a theater, and I literally looked at the screen and went, what the fuck? I did not see that. That's not, I mean, well, that is not going to be a healthy relationship, even if they could. But, like, there was never a time where I thought that was a thing, but I knew, that so many people were shipping them and wanted that to be a thing and wanted that. And I, so in that moment, I thought to myself, did they just give in to the fans? Because I never thought for a second that this was a love story. If anything, maybe a brother and sister that fight all the time, but not like...
Or angry cousins.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
Like,
well,
it just... I felt like in that moment, because of the way that people were shipping them for so long and wanting that so much, and I kept not seeing it, that when I saw them kiss on screen, I was like, fan service. This should not have happened in this story.
Well, not the biggest issue, but the most confusing thing for me was the problem I had was you had a different director in between the 3 movies. So
Right.
I don't know, because I could almost guarantee you J.J. Abrams' original idea was to have her as one of the Skywalkers, right?
Right.
I don't know. Again, I can't prove that. So I always felt like their relationship was going to be. I honestly thought they were going to pull a Luke and Leia. I thought it was going to be they were starting to become close, and then it was like someone walked in and was like, hey, by the way, I don't know if anyone told you, you two are related, so like, just like hold off on that. I thought they were going to pull that. And then we get the last right. We get the Last Jedi, and they're like, oh, no, Rey, you're no one. So I was like, oh, they're 100% probably going to make them, like, fall in love with each other if they're not related. I just didn't really think it was going to happen, mainly because I thought J.J. Abrams was going to go back to what I thought his original plan was, which was to make her a Skywalker. So that's where I kind of got confused. But now that you've seen them kiss, if you watch The Last Jedi again, it 100% makes sense. The push and the pull of the two of them, to where even at the end of The Last Jedi, where she was like, why don't you just come with me? Instead of us fighting each other, come with me. You kind of saw the empathy that the two of them were sharing for each other, how close they were somewhat getting. But again, there were always going to be magnets that were kind of like pulling from each other. So I mean, it's not completely out of left field. It's just not what I thought J.J. Abrams' plan was from the beginning. So that's why I think it kind of threw me off a little bit. But yeah, people were shipping them from the first movie, and I'm like, they kind of really set it up to where she was going to be a Skywalker. You guys know that, right? But apparently the shippers knew more than we did. So I mean, I just never thought it was going to happen because I thought they were family.
And I agree with you, and that's one of the things that, I'm sure there's legitimate reasons for it, but it is one of the things that bothered me about this Star Wars trilogy is why did you just not have JJ? Why did he not just do them all? He had to do so much. And I don't really want to say damage control because I'm not a person who hates The Last Jedi, but in order to wrap up the trilogy, there were so many loose ends and stories that weren't developed enough that he took on something that was bigger than one movie at that point. Where were they all, you know, in the writing room when they were, this story was supposed to arc? Like, did you not know what was going to happen in The Last Jedi? And then they were like, surprise, he screwed up where you were going, so now you have to fix it, and you have one movie. It just, as much faith as I have in, you know, in Disney and what they do in Lucasfilms, it seemed odd to me that J.J. Abrams was put in that position and not even consulted or, you know, knew that The Last Jedi was going to unfold the way it did.
Yeah, I mean, I put that all at Kathleen Kennedy's feet. I blame her 100% for it. I mean, think about this, right? We've had, I counted 5 Avengers movies because I count Civil War as like an Avengers brother. But all right, so let's say, you know, it's definitely that. So 5 Avengers movies, right? And 3 of them have the same director, 2 of them have the same director, right? So you then go, Feige was behind scenes telling the Russos, you know, this is what I was setting up with Whedon. This is kind of where I want you to go from here. I think Kathleen didn't do that. So I honestly don't think, and again, I don't know anything. I'm just speculating. I honestly don't think, what's his name? The director for the Last Jedi. I don't know why I'm blanking here, but
Ryan Johnson.
Thank you. I don't think Ryan and JJ and Kathleen ever sat down together. And if they say they did, they're lying, because you could watch The Last Jedi and The Skywalker, and you could watch those two and tell this does not feel like they're connected. It feels like this movie is telling you kind of ignore what you just saw. Same way The Last Jedi felt like it was telling you ignore what you just saw from The Force Awakens. Or specifically, ignore what you were assuming was going to happen from The Force Awakens. Because that is one thing I did respect from Ryan Johnson, that it seemed like he looked at everything that we wanted to see happen in The Last Jedi and just gave a huge middle finger to everyone. I always respect that. I always respect anyone who's brave enough to say, I know what the fan base wants, but I'm not going to give them anything. But yeah, no, they clearly look like Kathleen didn't sit them all down and say, what is the goal we're trying to achieve here? Because it did look like Abrams was playing catch-up.
Yeah.
It did look like Abrams had the unfortunate, duty to close. Because remember, Abrams wasn't closing 3 movies. He was closing 9. Which is why you got so much fan service for Chewbacca getting a medal meant nothing to anyone that was born in 2000. That meant nothing to anyone who was born in 2000. That clearly was for us that remembers the originals. That was always like, why the hell didn't Chewie get a medal? So he wasn't closing 3 movies; he was closing 9. But it's the job of Kathleen to make sure that JJ understands. I only need you to close 3. Like, we don't need fan service for movies that came out, way back when. I just need you to close these 3, and I need you to close them successfully. And I put that completely at Kathleen's feet. But yeah, to your broader point of shipping, it really just came kind of out of left field, really. But like I said, now that you've seen it, The Last Jedi kind of makes more sense as far as shipping those two, because you kind of see it. You kind of see it building. But Patrick, did you have anything to add off of what KJ was saying?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of I semi disagree. I see your point of like building up Last Jedi to into what happened in The Rise of Skywalker. However, I still agree with KJ is the way they set the tone. It was more brother and sister, or maybe that was what was more expected, I guess. But to go back, like you said, broad circle, with the shipping aspect, with Supernatural and the Captain and Bucky and everything else, it goes back to like one of my pet peeves of this whole thing of, all right, if you're so pissed about this, why didn't you submit a script and make it better? You're like, fans are blasting these little things, that are just isolated things. They're isolated scenes within a movie as opposed to looking at the entire scope of the entire picture. So you're like, oh, you're mad that this one scene didn't happen, because it should have been built up there was clearly no build up. You just wanted to see it happen, and it didn't happen. So you know what? Write something better or shut the hell up.
I love that. I love that. It's like people don't realize what goes into making a script and trying to tie it at loose ends, especially if it's a end movie and all that. And it's like, okay, Patrick, I 100% agree with you. I think that a lot of people out there underestimate what goes into making a movie. And it's just like, okay, then do better. If you think you could do better, then do better.
A fan could say, yeah, I could have written that scene better. Well, you know what? Yes, maybe you could have written that scene better, but there are thousands of scenes. So are you going to do all 1,000 of those scenes? Or are you going to do one scene? It's all or nothing. So shut the hell up.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I kind of look at it. I don't necessarily disagree with you. I just look at it to where, like, I'm kind of like, there's a such thing as, like, a payoff. And if you don't achieve it, I kind of feel like it's the job of the fans to let you know that they're disappointed that you didn't get. I'll give you a perfect example, right? If anyone knows the character of Oliver Queen, you know that he fell in love with Dinah. And in the show, they had him fall in love with possibly the worst interpretation of Black Canary. It took 3 Black Canaries to make 1 Black Canary, but he fell in love with Felicity. And it was like I've interviewed Mark Guggenheim where I've stressed to him, Mark, I really hate that you didn't, why couldn't you just put him with the Black Canary like he's supposed to be? And, sure, Mark could have told me, well, Juwan, if you think you can do better, here, we'll fly you out and let's see what you can do. But to be fair, and I think he kind of understood this, as a fan of the character, it's one of those things to where it's like you went out of your way to avoid that. And it was just like, I think as fans, it's only fair that we kind of know why. Like, why did you, go out of your way to avoid something? That's like if Tony didn't fall in love with Pepper, he fell in love with, his assistant that wasn't Pepper. And it was like, why? What? Pepper's right there. Why would you avoid the person he's supposed to be with to create this whole new person for him to fall in love with? So, I mean, I don't disagree with you because I watch The Last Jedi all the time, and I'm like, it's not as bad as people make it seem. It's just you had outlandish expectations that Rian Johnson seemingly refused to give you. And that's why people were so mad at it.
Well, and I think 2 points on that, though. One, with Rian Johnson, I agree with you. I like a director that's bold enough to take something in a direction that you're not expecting. I respect the hell out of that. However, you're talking about a franchise that has spanned 40 years. So that's and I understand times change, but you only have 9 episodes to wrap up a 40-year story. Let's not try to reinvent the wheel. Just make the storyline better. You know what I mean? So, and then, on the.
Yeah, I don't have anything against what Rian Johnson did. I actually enjoyed it. I mean, that scene that we were waiting for, she's gonna hand Luke the lightsaber and he tosses it. That was freaking brilliant. I mean,
absolutely.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I will say Rian Johnson definitely screwed the pooch on killing Luke. I'll keep saying this to the day that I die. Originally, from everything I was hearing early on when Colin Trevorrow was supposed to be doing episode 9, I had heard that there was a huge fight scene of Luke and Rey on like this fiery planet versus Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren, and it was supposed to be like this huge lightsaber battle. I am one of the maybe 2% of the people that were not blown away by that throne scene. I really felt as though The Last Jedi lacked lightsaber battle, and if there's one thing Juwan despises in all of Star Wars is you having lightsabers and not using them literally every second. Even if you're just talking, I want you just twirling it. Like, I want you twirling the lightsaber as you're just talking. Nothing irks me more than you not giving me an overabundance of lightsaber battles. So that's what I hated about The Last Jedi. And the throne room was just, it was underwhelming. And I really hated that Snoke wasn't, I was totally building this up and I forgot the character. The guy that taught Darth Sidious.
Darth Sidious.
I can't remember his name. No, yes, that's who I wanted Snoke to be. I wanted Snoke to be Plagueis, and when he wasn't, I was just like, I mean, come on, Ryan. Like, it writes itself.
but can you agree or disagree about this? And I'm interested in your opinion of the fact that, there were things in the movie that were just unnecessary. The biggest, and I'm just going to give the biggest example that was like glaring to me. When they were on Cantobite and the whole racing and, like the casino and all that stuff, that if they went there to get it, to get the who I'm talking about, Red Plum Bloom guy, if they were there just to get them, grab them, and get out, that'd be one thing. But that was 20 minutes of, that was 15, 20 minutes of the movie to me that stretched on unnecessarily, and got, a little preachy, and, it was little stuff like that to where it's like, okay, I get it, I see what you're trying to do here, but you took it too long.
Yeah, Ryan had a huge problem with just doing too many scenes in that movie that were, like, widely unnecessary. And if you think about it, none of what he was doing paid off in episode 9. Like, think about it. Remember that scene at the end where, like, the boy was using the Force when he was, like, sweeping? That didn't pay off anywhere. Like, we didn't hear anything else about it. We didn't hear anything about, there's more people with the Force out. Nothing. I mean, J.J. Abrams didn't even come out and tell us, like, in the movie, like, Finn was trying to tell Rey, like, he's Force sensitive. That's what he wanted to tell her, not that he loved her. And it was like, why did you just say that? Like, what? I don't get a lot of what Ryan and JJ were trying to play off of each other with, but Ryan was trying to set up like, there's a lot of Force-sensitive kids out there. Maybe you could rebuild the Jedi Order. And then JJ came out and was like, nah, just Rey. Just Rey. That's it. And it was like, what? I thought Ryan was just setting up just more Force users. What do you mean it's just Rey? So, I mean, that really bothered me, that a lot of stuff just didn't really play out. And, it kind of made it for, like, a boring story a little bit. Like, you telling me Darth Sidious was actually Snoke, and that's why Snoke was no one. It was kind of like, that's a little dry. Like, I didn't really need to see Sidious back. Like, no. I wanted a lightsaber battle to end that movie. And the fact that I saw him using his Force fingers, or Force lightning fingers, really irks me. That will forever irk me. And this is the biggest thing, Patrick, and then we're going to move on. Do you remember how Luke told Rey that Kylo took a few of the Jedi students with him when he left Luke?
Yeah, you would assume that they were the Knights of Ren.
Right. Now, do you remember when Kylo was fighting the Knights of Ren and used the Force and they all looked stunned like they have never seen the Force before? What the hell? You're supposed to be Force users. You're all supposed to be Force users. So why was Kylo Ren able to slice through them so easily and none of them thought, maybe we should like force push him away and like maybe like gang up one. Like no one thought that, and I'm like, this is another example of JJ saying, I don't know what the hell Ryan was doing, but like, no, they're not force users.
Right.
And it's like, what was the point of that? What was the point of that? But I'm seeing right now, Patrick, we could talk Star Wars all day long. I'm going to set that up. Me and you have to talk Star Wars.
Let's do it.
But Dom, I want to go to you. Haven't heard from you in a while. To Tia's point, does shipping bother you also, or have you not really been paying much attention to it?
I try my best to. I mean, okay, I would dabble in conversation with some of the people who are super ship something to the point where, like, especially with like I was really deep into like the Doctor Who fandom at one point, and you know people they just, I mean, it's one thing if you can kind of literally see the build of something about to happen, but I think people forget that actors improvise a lot of things. They have some certain creative liberties with roles, especially if it's a scene where, you know, they have a line, maybe just one line, and then the rest of it is like just speaking with like their bodies. So they may have, you know, inadvertently set up something that you thought was a thing that isn't, and then you can't just get completely irate when it doesn't happen because, you know, you could tell in the story that it wasn't setting up. Just because a person did it doesn't mean anything. Because, you know, of course, say in the Doctor Who universe, that, you know, everybody wants, especially when it's a younger Doctor, everybody always wants every single girl companion to be in love with the Doctor. And it's like, why? Like, why do you want that every single time? Because it's going to create the same storyline every time. Now we have the one that we had Clara. Cool. She can be infatuated with him and it creates a good dynamic. But you can't have Clara and Amelia and, you know, Rose. And you can't have every single one be infatuated because it comes, you know, redundant. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't bother me too much as far as like, I don't hear the echoes from people as much because I try to ignore the people for the most part, because you can say what you want to them and they're not trying to hear it. And there's only a few things that I'm willing to really go to bat for against other people. So a lot of the times I'm just like, I don't have the energy to do it. But the unfortunate part is that those people are the loudest, and they're usually the ones who affect people who aren't as invested in a story like we are. So if take for example all the people who were upset about the Birds of Prey movie. Now, if you're somebody who kind of wanted to see it, but you weren't really, you didn't really dabble into DC or Harley Quinn at all, and then you have these people talking shit about it because of something that they didn't like, then you're going to like, oh, well, all these people are yelling that they hate it, so I guess I'm not going to see it. So it can kind of ruin something before the engine gets going because of people not liking little things.
Yeah, and you're completely right. I think also what feeds into it is when you get guys like Oscar Isaac that kind of plays around with the idea of like, yeah, it would have been fine if me and Poe were, me and Finn were together in the story. And it's like, no, shut up. Like, no, don't feed into that. Don't give them any gasoline to put on that fire. I will say though, Tia, you bringing this up, it's funny because the one time where I wanted me and you to use like the shipping powers was like you said for Karen and Punisher, but I didn't really care like if they were together. I just needed her out of the way so Matt could focus all his attention on Elektra where it needs to be. Matt Murdock should only be in love with two people. one, Elektra, or two, Black Widow. And since Black Widow didn't exist in that story, he needed to be with Elektra. So I needed Karen way out of the way to assure that happened.
And that was the thing, is that, you know, I was not sad at all when Matt and Karen weren't together. It didn't work out in season 2. And when season 3 came in, it's like, I was like, please do not let them go in the route where they're going to try and repair their relationship. Friendship, yes. Like, the fact that they were not friends anymore, like, tore me up. But relationship, no. So when they didn't go that route in season 3, I was like, it's a chance for season of whatever Punisher for them to get together. So yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, I, you know, didn't want Matt to be with Karen at all. So it's like when that didn't happen, I thought it was going to lead the way for Karen and Frank to be together, especially when they were literally like their lips were 1 inch away from each other in season 2, and then Amy walked in, and then we just got no more Punisher anymore. But it's okay. I live in my fan fiction.
Hey, look, I didn't get enough of Matt and Elektra, so I'm still sitting here like, no, they're gonna get married. Like, they're gonna get married, they're gonna live happily ever after.
See,
Karen's not gonna mess up anything. Okay, no, we're gonna move on. I can't even get into that with you, Tia. I'm gonna go right back to you, Dom. What are some of the things that grind your gears?
So for me, as the MCU became a thing, I never thought that I would pick Iron Man, Spider-Man, Thor, Hulk over the X-Men. So X-Men was always my favorite growing up. And, you know, when the first X-Men movie came out in like 2000, I think I was at a family reunion, and me and my uncle went to go see it. And my uncle, he's the reason why I got into reading X-Men comics, because he kind of passed his down to me when I was younger. And I have, well, and now back in hindsight, between, you know, all the superhero movies I've seen, I've never been so disappointed in the X-Men in my life. The movies were so lackluster. Now, and first off, you know, as I think in 2000 I was in like 7th grade or something like that. I was upset that I didn't see the colors. I didn't see the yellows. I didn't see the blues. I was like, what is this? This is Mission Impossible? I don't understand what's going on. And then Rogue doesn't have, you know, she's not strong and flying. And I get what they were trying to set up, that something they were trying to set up that never happened. You know, they're trying to do the early days, and she hadn't touched Ms. Marvel to get her powers, you know, whatever. But as it went on, you know, we didn't get, you know, the Jubilee that we liked from the animated series. We didn't get, you know, a good Gambit. We, you know, eventually, I mean, it all just basically was like, it should have been Wolverine presents the X-Men the whole time, because I get it, Wolverine is a great character, and he's one of my favorites too. But if you just wanted to set up Wolverine movies for the future, just call it that, because the X-Men is such a vast world where you have basically all these different factions. You have your group led by Mr. Sinister, and you have your group that's led by, you know, Havoc, and you have a group that's led by Magneto. You know, you have all these different factions, and they could have done, and they just stuck with the one morsel, and it didn't really expand that far. And you didn't let, I mean, for one, you didn't let Apocalypse be Apocalypse. I don't understand what they did with that. Was a catastrophe, because it's Apocalypse. I mean, you gonna let this guy run wild for the whole movie, and then they're like, hey guys, let's come together and we can destroy him. No, he's Apocalypse. You can't destroy Apocalypse. So yeah, I mean, and well, I don't want to talk about Origins Wolverine, because I don't even know what that was. That was hard. It was just bad. And I'm really glad that at least Ryan Reynolds was at least looked like a little pissed enough to like really fight to make Deadpool, because Deadpool, I feel, at least has kind of the aesthetic and kind of brightness and lightheartedness enough to be in that world, because the X-Men movies were always super dramatized, and I get that it's a serious thing, but the comics weren't that like drab the entire time, and that's how they always made it feel. Like it was kind of like the Daria version of X-Men. Like everybody was just like, oh, they hate me. I don't know what we're gonna do. Like, do we fight these guys? They don't like us either. And I'm just like, what do you like? Come on, like I don't. So yeah, that's my biggest thing is the X-Men. They could have done so much more. Fox dropped the ball. I really hope that the MCU, if they introduce them, they can like revamp the whole thing and flip it on its head, because I don't know anybody. If you ask them what their favorite superhero movie is, nobody's gonna say one of the X-Men movies. I don't know anybody that will, unless you count Logan. But I felt like Logan was, even though it's connected, I feel like that was more of a standalone thing, because that's a fantastic movie, one of the best ones. But all the rest of them, Garbaggio. I don't know. I can't even like every other superhero movie that comes on TV, if I'm flipping channels, I'll stop and watch it. I don't stop and watch any of the X-Men movies because I just can't. Like Magneto's helmet was gross until they got to Days of Future Past. And I love Ian McKellen. I love, Patrick Stewart, but like they just happen to be part of a terrible trilogy. Yeah, I don't know, man. It killed me to see X-Men done in that way, and even the shows. The only ones I think I really followed was The Gifted, and that one felt a little better. But I think that one, I don't know if it's coming back for another season or not. I think it had 2 maybe. I don't know if it got canceled. But it just seems like for one of the biggest comic book franchises, it seems like it's becoming like bottom of the barrel now. People are looking more. I would never think people wanted to be, Iron Man over, some of the X-Men, but that's the world we live in now.
Well, I will say this. Huge shout out to Emma Dumont, who played Polaris on The Gifted, that was canceled. But I think it was mainly canceled for the idea that Fox was losing its rights to the characters and Feige wasn't going to continue the show. But huge shout out to Emma Dumont. We've interviewed her before. She is a friend of Geek Vibes Nation. Huge shout out to her. I had to throw that in there because I didn't know where you were going when you were starting to talk about The Gifted. And
no, I like The Gifted.
Because, AJ came on. AJ did, a podcast where he was ripping one of the DC animated movies. And Ernie Altbacker is, a really good friend of ours. And he wrote that, the Batman movie that AJ was trashing. So, I now have to be aware when people are trashing stuff. I'm like, whoa, do we know them? Hold on, do we know them? Before any trash comes out. But, no. Only thing I disagree with you on, Dom, is I think X2 is, if you're going to tell me that Spider-Man 2 is a classic, you're not going to tell me X2 wasn't a classic. Spider-Man 2 to me was very boring. It had one great scene, and the rest of the movie bored me. If not for that train scene, I don't really think I enjoy that movie at all. X2 to me was amazing. I loved every second of X2. And I completely get that might be a me thing. But I loved it. I really did. I truly did. And I remember in the theater with my dad freaking out after the end credit scene of seeing the Phoenix in the water. And I was oh my God, they're doing it. They're really going to do it. And then I remember seeing X-Men 3 oh my God, maybe they shouldn't have did this. But no, I loved X2. I really did love X2. That is the only movie I can defend. The first one I didn't think was that bad. I think what was bad about that movie was that if you were a 90s kid and you had just seen how colorful that original X-Men cartoon was, and then you watch this movie, you would think it was a spoof because everything is so dark. It's just like Tia, you talk about BVS. That first X-Men movie was so dark. Like, almost all of its shots were at night.
Yeah.
It was like, you guys probably shouldn't be wearing, like, a dark blue or all black. It does not help me see you better. So, I mean, that was crazy. But, I mean, I got to give huge shouts out to Rebecca Romijn for actually playing Mystique. That is a dig at you, Jennifer Lawrence. You maybe should have, like, seen Rebecca Romijn to understand what Mystique was supposed to be like. But yeah, like I was saying, X2 to me is in my top 10. But you're right, they had many issues with X-Men. One being you had too many hands in the kitchen. Also, it does not help when your director tells your cast, hey, you know, we're doing a movie based off of comic book characters, but do me a favor, don't read any of those comics because I'm not doing any of that shit. And whenever a director says that, you kind of as a fan go, yikes. Like, uh-oh, I don't think this is going to be good. And it was not. We had 3 movies that kind of made you go, I don't really think Bryan Singer understood the X-Men. Like, I really don't.
He didn't understand boundaries either.
Yes, good one, Thea. Good one. That was really good, Thea. No, but he did not. I mean, he went out and got us a Wolverine that was way too tall to ever be in the comic-accurate suit. He then refused to put him in a comic-accurate suit. We then seen Wolverine's character end not ever being in a comic-accurate suit. They even teased it in the Wolverine, where the girl brought him the case and he opens it and it's the Wolverine costume and he kind of like raises an eyebrow to it and I'm like, yo, we could get it, and then no, we did not get it. That is the biggest spit in the face I've seen in comic book history besides the Mandarin. That was just great. But yeah, that was. It's funny. It's funny when people go, "No, the Mandarin was like the worst thing of Iron Man 3," and I go, "Oh, you guys haven't read a comic book because how they did AIM was even worse." That was like the Mandarin. I can kind of like get away with because it's like, all right, clearly there's a real Mandarin that this is supposed to be playing off of. Which evidently that's the case. We'll be getting Mandarin in Shang-Chi. But you look at AIM and you're like, I remember AIM being in hazmat suits, like all yellow hazmat suits. And it was like, these guys aren't AIM. None of this is AIM. This isn't AIM. Anyone who has not read a comic, don't let this be what you think AIM is. So that to me hurt me deeper than anything. And I hated how they used extremists. But that's a whole nother thing we'll talk about another time. But Tia, I'll go to you first. Do you agree with Dom? Did seeing the X-Men kind of like really grind your gears because of how poorly it was done?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general have to agree with Dom. X-Men felt like, to me, I was born in 1990, so, you know, obviously you see the Batman movies and everything, but X-Men Evolution was a huge cartoon that I grew up watching, and I feel like the X-Men movies were kind of, you know, what we had at the time. They were the big thing before we had the MCU, and I think that, at least for me, originally having watched them, you held them to be such a sacred level. But then going back and watching it and then seeing how it just kind of pittered into, like, nothingness is what really does grind my gears, because you have really first of all, you have really fantastic storylines. You have great characters. I'm sorry, I went back and watched that first X-Men, and I thought it was horrific. Like, Sabretooth was terrible. Like, the Wolverine Origins was terrible. And this is Origins, not the I actually forget that sometimes that movie exists. But I I actually liked Liev Schreiber as Sabretooth. So it's like you had little things, as Dom was touching upon, so you had little things in the movies that were good. Hugh Jackman, yes, not being the right height wasn't good, but he was a good Wolverine. Joanne, I 100% agree with you. Rebecca Romijn was fantastic as Mystique. Ian McKellen was great. Patrick Stewart was great. And I have two more points, or whatever, but you're going to hate me for this already, Joanne, because you and I seem to, like, never agree on movies. But I actually liked X3. And one of my favorite lines ever in that movie will always be when Mystique, you know, starts turning, like, quote-unquote human, and she's begging, you know, oh, God, why am I blanking on names right now? Oh, my God, Magneto to help her. Yeah, and he's like, I'm sorry, darling, you're not one of us anymore. I'm like, I'm like, he did her like that? I was like, that's supposed to be his main girl. I was like, what? So it's like you had all these fantastic aspects, and then it just felt like they didn't necessarily know what they were doing. And I'm always the type of person that I hate when they do, and this is just me, I don't like when they do necessarily the young versions, you know? I was never really sold on, like, the first class group. Not to say that James McAvoy wasn't great and Michael Fassbender is one of my favorite actors, but it's like it was weird seeing a young Jean Grey. It was weird seeing a young Mystique because, as you said, Joanne, like, Jennifer Lawrence just never really played her the way that she should have. Even Cyclops, like, James Marsden, even to this day, whatever he's in, I'm like, oh, look, it's Cyclops. So, yeah, the X-Men universe definitely grinds my gears because it just feels like it was just okay. Like, looking back on it, besides Logan, which was phenomenal, and I love the Deadpool movies, but I count those as separate. When you think about the X-Men universe as a whole, it just feels like they were all just okay. A lot of them were cheesy. There was some bad cliches in the movies, and so a lot of it, especially the early ones, when you go back and look at them, they just felt like cheap costume characters that really didn't go. And I didn't know that, Joanne, that, you know, the director pretty much told him, like, don't read any of the comic books. So it makes sense.
Yeah, clearly he didn't read any. But, yeah, you saying you enjoyed X3 is definitely shocking. I think it is the most quotable.
I will say I haven't gone back and watched it in a long time, so maybe I'm wrong, and maybe looking back I will feel differently about it. But I remember when I originally watched it, I liked it because there were aspects I liked about it. You know, like that scene there, or, you know, there being a quote-unquote cure for mutantism, and you actually have mutants who are considering it, because while you have these faction of mutants that are fighting for mutant rights, it's like, you know, not everyone has a great mutant power, and it's like maybe there are those who don't want. So I liked that aspect of it. I felt like it was asking a lot of, like, valid questions. So I feel maybe that's why, like, X3 has rights for me.
Well, what eliminates X3 for me is two things right off the bat. And that's the fact that they killed Scott within, like, the first 3 minutes of the movie. And two, the fact that Magneto lost his powers and then was able to still move the chess piece at the end, and that was never explained. Even when we saw him again, it was never explained.
But I thought that was what was epic. It's like they left it off where it could have been something, but then they decided never to go anywhere with it. It's like, oh my God, it's like he really has, like it's the same thing. Like, okay, really quick, I'm sorry. But it's like, to me, I saw that scene, and it instantly reminds me right now of the end of Inception, where you're like, oh, is he in the real world or is he in the dream world right now? And it's kind of like how I felt the same way, like, oh, what does that mean? But then they just never decided to go anywhere with it.
Yeah, which is why, like, picture if they did Inception 2 and brought the same cast back, and they never explained whether or not he was in the real world. What was the point of that?
It'd be frustrating.
What was the point
yeah.
of that? Well, no, I don't need Inception level thinking in my X-Men movies. Tell me how he still has his powers and how everyone else lost them. Like that's all I need. I'm not asking for much. That's all I need. Hey, this is the dart didn't go all the way in him or whatever. I'm even if the explanation is stupid, I'll take it because it's an explanation. But for you to leave it up in the air and then the next time I see him, he's using his powers like he's never lost them. What was that? And don't even get me started on the fact that I saw Charles explode and then show up in a hospital bed at the end of the movie. What? And then that was never explained. Like he was in that. He was in it at the end of the Wolverine. He was in Days of Future Past. What the? So you can take powers and kill people, and then they don't even get explained. We're back. What is this? So no. I will say the best thing that X3 gave me was Wolverine's in the woods fight scene. Beautifully shot. Excuse me. That was beautifully shot. Juggernaut was freaking awesome. I love Juggernaut. He had the best. He possibly had one of the best one-liners I've seen since Blade.
Juggernaut.
I love that. I will forever love that. They destroyed Angel. I don't know what the hell that was. You wasted a good actor too. I hated what they did with Phoenix. That was confusing. Again, they killed Scott, the actual leader of the X-Men, within the first 5 minutes of the movie. I hate it. I hated the back and forth about the cure and all. There was a lot that I hated about that movie, Tia. But the Wolverine in the woods fight scene, super dope. And Juggernaut was freaking awesome. But besides that, I could not think of anything redeemable in possibly one of the more confusing superhero movies I've ever seen in my life in X3. It's visually frustrating and then mentally frustrating and then all other kinds of frustrating. But KJ and Patrick, do you guys agree with Dom and Tia on some of the bigger issues? Before I pass to you guys, I did want to say, Tia, I was a huge fan of them making the X-Men younger, mainly because when you think about building a universe, right, you want to kind of build it to where it's like if you wanted to make 10 movies with this cast, you pick them at the right age to where you could do it. And, it not really be an issue, it not really be them talking about, I want to kind of do other things. They're young. They're really excited to be in this big and they're really excited to be getting the notoriety and the money. They're not really going to
Yeah, but
I thought that was perfect.
I don't need to see my superheroes in diapers. I don't know. I just want to see them as adults. It just bothered me. I don't know. And then Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy looks older than all the others. I like Sophie Turner in Game of Thrones, but she was young. Jennifer Lawrence looks too young. Who they got to play Cyclops looks too young. I don't know. It's just there was something weird about it to me that all of them look so baby faced. I don't know. That's just me. I just I was never into it. But then again, I've only seen First Class, so I never saw the other two after that.
Yeah,
or three, whatever it is after this.
I can't even tell you how many times when you say things like that, it makes me want to cry. Please don't see those movies, Tia. Just see them just to say that you don't like them. I'm completely fine with that, but please take this time that we have and watch them, please. Because Days of Future Past is one of the greatest X-Men movies I think, A, exists, and B, will ever exist. It was so well written. It made me somewhat like Mystique in that movie because she was get this, hold on everyone, a villain. What? Mystique? No way. Yeah. Believe it or not, Mystique is a villain. Contrary to what that universe was making you believe, she's a villain, not a good guy. That movie did a really good job on kind of playing with that. But it had some of the best acting I've seen. And it was able to really build, and Hugh Jackman was freaking perfect in that movie. But yeah, definitely watch that. Definitely watch the other ones. Just even to say you hated them, but you should watch them. But I'm sorry, KJ and Patrick, I'll pass it back over to you. Do you agree with Dom and Tia? Did you guys see any big issues with the X-Men universe?
You know, I'm going to be completely honest. I wasn't as well indoctrinated into the X-Men universe as I should have been going into the X-Men movies. But I do agree with Dom on a lot of points. Sorry, the cats are fighting. I think one of the biggest deals, like he said, there were so many characters were not even recognized or underutilized. You know, like Gambit. I love the character Gambit, and it was just just a quick one-off. But but that's the hard thing is X-Men is its own universe aside from they're part of the MCU, but they are, the XCU, as it were, And the other thing you got to remember is, it was a Fox movie. So, I mean, they got it right with Deadpool, but, you got to think there are a lot of those Marvel Fox movies that they were just very off base, like the until the Iron Man, until the MCU started with the Iron Man franchise, everything else was just its own kind of thing. And I think it was, I agree with you. I like X2. I thought it was cool. I like, progressing the storyline, but yet keeping, trying to figure out Wolverine's past. And X-Men, First Class and Days of Future's Past, and hit and miss. Rebecca Romijn, 100%. I agree with you. She was a fantastic Mystique. She was just I don't even know how to explain it. Would you say suave and sadistically evil?
Yes.
And and so I absolutely love that. And and like you said, not saying Jennifer Lawrence, did a bad job. I think she did well for the character that they wrote her to be. And I think what's that?
No, my issue wasn't don't get me wrong. I hated that she was made to be a good guy. I could live with that, but what I can't live with and what I do put a lot of the blame on is if you took this role, you know exactly what this character looks like. The character is green. I'm sorry, not green. Is blue all the time. The only time Rebecca Romijn was not blue was when she lost the ability to be blue. That was the one time she was not blue. She should be blue all the time. Trust me, we get it. We know what Jennifer Lawrence looks like. You don't have to remind us. I kept watching that movie when I was watching it on TV, and I'm like, is this the Hunger Games? Why is she not blue? What am I watching? This can't be X-Men. And it was just so frustrating because it's that to me is as frustrating as watching Supergirl and seeing that they have Martian Manhunter, but he's never Martian Manhunter. Then why is he here? Why am I looking at this guy and seeing his human face and not him being green? Why? It's frustrating. So that's what I blame Jennifer Lawrence for, because I can almost guarantee you she was she sat through that makeup for the first movie and was like, I don't like this. I'm not going to do this for the entirety of 3 or 4 movies. So then they kind of worked with her where it was like, all right, well, we'll show your real face. And it was I hated it. And I blame that on her.
Do you have any proof of that, or you just decided that?
Do I have any proof? Well, no.
Yes.
This is the mindset I have about Hollywood, right? When you look at Iron Man, how often do you see the outside of the suit? Not a lot, right? Why? Because they're showing you inside of the helmet so you see Robert Downey Jr.'s face. I hate that. I know what Robert Downey Jr. looks like. Show me the suit in the outside of it. And I kind of feel like that's your way of saying, hey, I have star power. I want to show my face. Will Smith not having the mask on more in Suicide Squad. Obviously, why? Because he's Will Smith, wants to show his face. This is no different. Jennifer Lawrence was a star before becoming Mystique, and I don't find it hard to believe that either the studio or her or both wanted to show her face a lot. And what I don't get is it's still her face. It's just blue. You're not putting a mask over it. You're not putting a bag over it. It's still her face. Just make it blue. So the only thing I can think of is she didn't want to sit through makeup as often as she should have. That's the only logical thing I can think of.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense, man. But, to the point of Downey, I was like, I'm just sitting here going, you know what, how brilliant is it, like, cutting down the cost of production time and shooting time? You're just Robert Downey in a black background, just turning his head and doing headshots and dialogue. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can live with that because the rumor was that if they had went with Tom Cruise, one of his things was he doesn't want to wear the helmet. And I'm like, well, hold on, wait. What, you want to be Iron Man and not wear the helmet? Like, how are you going to fly in the air and make sense? Like, you had to be flying in that high of altitude with no mask. So I heard he didn't want to wear it as often as they would have liked him to. And that was one of the things that they were kind of like, let's see what Jon Favreau has with casting before we kind of say yes to this. So Robert Downey Jr., I could live with seeing you inside the helmet more so than you just not wearing it. So you take the good with the bad. So,
but to completely answer the question, I think KJ and I both do agree with Dom on his assessment of the X-Men universe.
Well, yeah, and especially to the point, I feel like I was trying to think back further, but I feel like the X-Men was the first sort of step into the dark and drab superhero world, like where it was like, up until this point, I thought it was pretty cool to be a superhero, but you all are miserable. This doesn't look fun at all.
Michael Keaton Batman withstanding.
But even the Michael Keaton Batman there was some lightness to it. There was some
there were vibrant colors and like there were flashy and flamboyant parts of even the 1989 Batman.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Where with X-Men, it was, I said, okay, well, this is just, and especially, I'll say the Wolverine movies, and I love Hugh Jackman, and I thought he was a great Wolverine, but I felt like those movies just kind of dragged, like they took a lot out of you. Just so much. Like, okay, here we go, another Wolverine movie. I need to rest up for this. It's just, I think it was really the first time that superhero movies kind of went down that road of, oh, it's such torture. And that's what caught me off guard was that I had spent my life thinking how much fun it would be to be a superhero. And yes, I understand that, humans are flawed and so are superheroes and real life sucks sometimes, but I was looking for more of that adventurous side of the X-Men, and it was just, let's say it was just more of like this, poor me that I'm a mutant, which wasn't what I was expecting.
Well, that's why I love First Class, because I think First Class gave me everything that you're saying the original trilogy lacked. You didn't really get much of the, oh my God, I really hate the skin that I'm in, or oh my God, like we need to find a cure so I can stop looking. Like, no, it was just people embracing. It was Charles helping them, Charles and Magneto helping them embrace exactly who they are. And I loved it. I completely loved it. I would say the only issue, and Dom, I'm curious to hear what you think about this. My only issue with the newer universe with the younger X-Men was, did anyone else notice how Quasar, I think is his name, the red devil that could teleport? Did anyone else notice how we had him in the same movie as Mystique, and then 2 movies later we had Nightcrawler, and they never explained the fact that Nightcrawler is the child of those two? Like, Dom, did that not bother you at all?
No, it definitely bothered me. I mean, that was one of the, like, when I first saw Nightcrawler pop up in, what was it, Last Stand? Oh, no, it was X2.
It was X2. It had the greatest opening scene since Blade.
Yeah. And that was one of the things I was curious if they were going to, like, dive into, because one of the main storylines of the comic and the animated series was, her Mystique being with this Duke and her hiding who she was, and then she has a baby and it's blue, and then she sends it off down this river, and then he gets, found by these carnies and raised by them, and they didn't do anything with it. I was like, what is going on? Yeah, and then you see Azazel, and I'm like, this is a perfect time. Like, he's a devil, and she, like, this is clearly where this guy comes from. And yeah, I was really upset that they didn't at least mention it.
Yeah, like, I would have been fine, even if you just played off of it. Like, obviously, Nightcrawler in that series seemed to be, let's say 15, 16, and it seemed like her Mystique was supposed to be, like, mid-20s. So it was kind of like, they probably weren't going to do it. But I would have loved if he said, like, do you know how much I freaked out when Quicksilver said my mom dated a guy that, what did he say? I'm paraphrasing that, like, could control metal. I was like, oh, my God, yes, yes, that's your dad. Like, I loved it. And then, like, they never really embraced it. Like, the entire time Magneto's like, I don't have any family. And I'm like, he's right there. He's literally right there. So I'm looking at that, and I'm like, embrace it. And then I'm like, I would have been fine if, like, Nightcrawler just said, like, they said my mom, could kind of do something like that. And then, like, she was like, well, I don't have any kids. Like, just something like that, to where I could see that you're acknowledging it. But the fact that you had those two characters who clearly are his parents, like, one was blue, that's why he's blue. One had a devil tail and could teleport. Nightcrawler has a devil tail and can teleport. I can't write this any better. Like, it's right there for you to just, like, bring it home. So that really irked me. So I'm glad it bothered you too, Dom, because I'm like, this is like the easiest home run you could hit. And you're sitting here and you're not using it. Just like, when Quicksilver figured out that Magneto was his dad, I think, was it the last, I can't remember which X-Men movie it was, but Mystique was like, you should tell him. And he's like, nah, I'm not going to tell him. I'm like, what? What do you mean? He's hurting. He needs family. Why wouldn't you tell him that? So yeah, that bothered me tremendously. KJ Patrick, did you guys notice that, or did it not bother you guys as much?
Are you talking about Dark Phoenix?
No.
No. I try my best not to talk about that movie at all. I just mean the idea that Nightcrawler had both of his parents in this X-Men world, and they never established that those are his parents.
Yeah, no, I think, well, again, that's one of those, is that one of those kind of rabbit hole things that you want to go down? Or, I mean, I guess. Yeah,
but I think, like, it didn't have to be, like, if you weren't going to address it, you could have easily just left Nightcrawler out, like, bringing in Nightcrawler. Right? Bringing in Nightcrawler gave you those feels of, like, oh, here we go. Right, I know who that is. And then it was it doesn't matter who
or
it is.
I'll do you one better, KJ. Hazazel. Am I saying that right, Dom? Hazazel? Yeah. I would have just left him out. Because if you don't have him in, we would have thought the same thing we thought with the original X-Men trilogy when we saw Nightcrawler and Mystique, that you're just not going to acknowledge that in the comics and in the show, that's her kid. And I would have been fine with it, because it would have made sense that in this series, establish that, mainly because their ages aren't that far from each other. 10, maybe 15 years. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I get it. And in the original trilogy, they look like they're legit around the same age. So I'm like, if you had just left Hazazel out, I wouldn't have been as upset, because it's like, all right, well, you did it in the original. I get it, you doing it here. But you brought his dad in. And then you have his dad and his mom in the same movie. And I'm like, all right, come on. No. Like, come on. But it's right there. Go ahead, Tia.
But wouldn't it not have made sense for First Class? Because Jason Fleming is like 50 years old, and like, I don't know, Jennifer Lawrence is like 20 or something, like, in that or whatever. It's like, I don't know, that would have been like a little weird, to have that get with that Hazazel. It would have been different if, like, Rebecca Remain's mystique had gotten with Jason Fleming's Azazel.
But you didn't have to like show an on-screen romance or anything. You could have just alluded to the fact that maybe they had like a drunken one night or whatever. Because like in the cartoon, the comic I can't remember as vividly, but I remember in Dom, you can help me out with this. In the cartoon, when she had the kids, she didn't know what to do. So like she kind of just like built like this little raft, put them in it, and just like let them sail down like this river. And someone
terrible.
found them and raised them. It's horrible, but
terrible.
it would make
child.
It would make perfect sense for this, especially what you're saying with the age discrepancy, that she wasn't ready to be a parent. So she was kind of just like, I don't know what to do. Like, here, River, you take them. And then it's like perfect. Like that's why he's looking for who his parents are. I'm just saying to you, you don't put his parents in the same universe as him, and then you just don't allude to it whatsoever. That's blatant. That's blatant and unnecessary.
But yeah, this is why it's so great that Dom brought this up, because it's like, look how many plot holes continuing to pop up in every aspect of the X-Men universe. It's like they really just didn't, like, there's so many things that show that, like, they just didn't care to even try to, create any sort of continuity or any sort of touchstone back to the comics.
Yeah, and as much as they thought Days of Future Past helped their timeline, it didn't. It made a lot more things confusing than it helped, really. I mean, so much of it was confusing. Like I said, the fact that Xavier was dead and then popped up and then they never explained, and then the fact that Magneto lost powers and they never explained, and then it's just like, no, we're in the future now and everything's cool. What? That made no sense. But yeah, it was very, very, very frustrating. I do want us to do this before we end this episode because I think it would be a lot of fun. And obviously it was trending like the past few days. I'm going to go around and I want to hear what you guys enjoyed more. Not what you thought was worse. What you enjoyed more between Iron Man 3 and Thor 2, The Dark World. Tia, I'm going to start with you. What did you enjoy more?
I actually enjoyed Iron Man 3 more because recently I was doing a big Marvel binge, and I haven't watched the third Iron Man in so long because I remember in my head not liking it. And obviously it's, one of the movies that people shit on the most in the MCU. And I was like, let me go back and watch and, like, see what it was. And I actually found myself enjoying it, sitting down and saying, like, you know what, this isn't that bad. Of course, yes, there's, and we can go into that forever. There are problems. I acknowledge that 100%. But I liked it. I enjoyed it more than I thought I remembered enjoying it, and I certainly enjoyed it better than Thor: The Dark World because I'm telling you, anytime I try to watch Thor: The Dark World, I literally just end up skipping to all the Loki scenes because I cannot bear to watch a second of that freaking movie.
Well, I mean, my problems with Iron Man 3 were, if you're a fan of the comics, it clearly did not read. Shane Black clearly said, no, I didn't read anything. And he just decided to make a more grounded, more realistic Iron Man movie. As a comic book fan, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say is that I liked in Iron Man 3 the dynamic of Tony's PTSD. Considering who Tony is and what he went through in the first Avengers, like, I did like that was a very real thing. Like, he's just a human in a suit, a very smart human, as he says, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. But that's a huge thing to experience as a human who probably didn't ever think that there was extraterrestrial life. It's like, to then, show him experiencing PTSD, looking back, I liked that, and I enjoyed that aspect. I kind of liked when you finally found out, like when you first are watching it and you find out that guy's the Mandarin, or you at least think it is, you're like, this is stupid. He's kind of like really, like, what is going on? But then when you find out there's like a bait and switch, you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. We're going to find it out like later on, especially if you watch the short like movie that came out after Thor 2 called All Hail the King. It's like it's just now has taken a million years to finally get the real Mandarin. But aspects I like about Iron Man 3, like I enjoyed just there was certain aspects of it with Happy being involved a little bit more, but and I can see the problems with it. You know, I personally didn't like him destroying all of his suits, but that's, you know, a topic for another day. But I'm just saying, like, from an entertainment standpoint, I could sit down and watch Iron Man 3. I cannot sit down and watch Thor: The Dark World. It is too unbearable.
Yeah, no, this movie was I the one good thing I give Shane Black of this movie was the fact that I never thought I would see the Iron Patriot. I don't know if people know this or not, but the Iron Patriot in the comics is Norman Osborn, not Rhodey. So that was a little frustrating, mainly because now I don't think unless you go the route of like the government gave it to Norman Osborn. I don't know. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. But I remember leaving Iron Man 3 going, I didn't like Iron Man 2, but Jon Favreau 100% should have done Iron Man 3. This should not have been something that we outsourced to Shane Black, of all people. Shane Black, of all people, should not have been doing an Iron Man movie.
And I didn't understand why Jon Favreau didn't do the third one. It wasn't like he wasn't in the third one.
No, I think it was a conflict. I think him and Feige weren't really agreeing on the direction. I believe that's what the rumor was. I think if you ask him now, he would just say he wanted to do something else, and it was conflicting. Because I do think The Chef, his movie came out around Iron Man 3. So I guess
you might be right.
He didn't want to really do like directing, acting, and then go over and do directing and acting. I think that's the lie he would give you. I have a few comic book movie conspiracy theories. Like my biggest one is Tom Hardy turning down Suicide Squad. That was not a conflict of scheduling. That 100% was. He didn't like that movie was definitely catering to Will Smith and Margot Robbie. Like it didn't have enough time to cater to all three of them.
I just don't see Tom Hardy having that. I don't see him having that big of an ego. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just being a Tom Hardy apologist. I feel like he would take a smaller role, but, you know, and make his small role.
I think you're underselling it only because, if I remember correctly, again, let me say I could be 100% wrong. I do believe he was casted first as Rick Flag. And then I think the other casting started to come down. So I think the original concept was for him to have a large role. And again, I was hearing rumors that he originally was supposed to be Deadshot. But then I heard that his character, Rick Flag, who, again, was like, why would you have Tom Hardy be Rick Flag? Make him Deadshot. But when they made him Rick Flag, it was for him to have a larger role. But then when you cast Will Smith, it's really hard to then say you're going to be having as much screen time as Will Smith. I agree with you. Maybe Tom Hardy isn't that egocentric, but I don't know. I don't know, Tia. There's more to that than meets the eye. But we're gonna have a conspiracy theorist episode, and you guys are gonna hear how crazy my brain goes. No, I'm actually going Thor: Dark World. There's more to that movie that I think I could really grab onto than I could Iron Man 3. Mainly because once I saw Thor 1, I understood that Kenneth Branagh had no idea who Thor was. Clearly, he only read who Loki was. And Odin, like, he had no idea who Thor was. He did a horrible job with Thor. I thought Thor Dark World was leaning more towards a comical Thor. I love some of the action pieces. I love the beginning where he just drops in from the Bifrost. Breaks the rock guy in half. That looks really suspiciously like Korg. But he breaks the rock guy in half. I love that. I love the scenes with him and Loki. I did like the idea
the Loki scenes.
No. I like the scenes that Thor shared with Loki. not just Loki moments per se, but I love the moments that they had together. Like I love the whole faking him losing his hand or his arm or whatever, and just pulling the whole bait and switch, only for him to think Loki really died. Like a lot of that was really interesting. Frida dying will always make me cry, and then will always make me cry harder is this scene in Endgame. Like I will forever cry seeing that. It's just so emotional. He loved his mother so much. You also saw the hurt in Loki when he found out that she had died. That was the only person that ever believed in him. So I mean, just a lot of that played off of a lot of emotion. I just think where that movie kind of derails itself is the entire end. Like a little after the second half starts, and then that entire ending is just like, no, I don't really like that. I don't really like that. But I loved it. And you loved the small little Chris Evans cameo that you got in Dark World. There were just a lot more things emotionally that I loved about Thor: The Dark World than I did Iron Man 3. And that says a lot, because you guys know how much I despise Thor 1 and 2. So much so, when I do Marvel marathons, I skip Thor 1 and 2. I go right to Ragnarok. Wow. I just, it's the first one is so god awful. Loki being, that movie, let me say this. That movie is so bad, I think Tom Hiddleston should have been nominated for an Oscar. That's how bad that movie is. He deserves some kind of glory for having to carry the boatload of that entire movie.
Thor 1 was better than
garbage.
Thor 2.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could ever say that. I don't know if I could ever say that.
Thor
was horrible. Thor was horrible. The premise was horrible. I hated how they blended his hair with his beard. That should never be the same color. Looks weird.
That was
I hated it was horrible. I hated the Destroyer. I hated how much you kind of I will say this though, the one great scene Thor 1 had that was better than anything I think in Thor 2 was Hawkeye. When I saw that, I almost lost my shit in the theater. I'm like, is that Clint Barton? Did they just say Clint? I almost lost my shit seeing that. I also loved the little nugget of Thor's human name that he developed when he had the fake ID. I thought that was freaking brilliant. I love that Kenneth had that in there. But no, I could never watch Thor 1 over Thor 2. But I'm going to pass it, KJ, to you and Patrick. Which movie did you enjoy more, Thor: The Dark World or Iron Man 3?
Here's the thing. I would say I enjoyed them both, but I judge my movies on how often I go back to them, and I go back to Iron Man 3 way more than Thor 2. I feel like Thor, The Dark World was exactly what Thor shouldn't be, which is dark and serious. You can't take the Thor character seriously. And I didn't feel like they used enough of Chris Hemsworth's comedic talent really until they got to Thor Ragnarok. But it didn't lend itself to that with The Dark World. And Iron Man 3, I'm the same way with Tia. I think that Iron Man 3 gave Tony Stark's character a lot of depth that it needed. He was human, and he didn't have all of his toys and his gadgets to get him out, and he was dealing with a panic attack, like Tony Stark having a panic attack. I just thought that was really good character development for Tony. And I enjoyed the fact that they explored that aspect, and with PTSD, of course you're going to have that, and they handled it in a way that wasn't too sensationalized, like it was real. Like, yeah, probably you're going to have some panic attacks after what you went through in New York. So yeah, I would say Iron Man 3 I thought was fun. I know when I watched it the first time, it's like it was the first time we got a last movie. Like this is the last Iron Man movie. we knew we were getting more Iron Man, but this is the last Iron Man movie. So, but, like emotionally sitting in the theater, knowing this is it, we went out and adopted a cat and named him Rhodey. So I'm like, I really, really loved how they wrapped it up. We could talk about the Mandarin. I don't love the way they did that, but at the end of the day, did I leave the movie feeling like I had a good time, feeling like I was on Iron Man's side, and feeling like it wrapped up his 3-movie arc very well? Yeah, I really do think it did.
Fair enough. I might have to just go watch Iron Man 3 again. I'll try to do it when I'm tired so that I can make the excuse, I fell asleep. But, no.
I think, Javon, once you have dealt with the fact that the Mandarin isn't what we expect the Mandarin to be, and AIM isn't what we expected it to be, if you just go in and wipe the slate clean and just watch it as an Iron Man movie from the perspective of what Tony Stark is going through, that you will find a way to enjoy it.
I'll try, because everyone said that about Iron Man 2, and all I get from that movie is the birds. My birds. That movie was so bad. That movie was
Iron Man 2 was great.
God.
Justin Hammer was
so
hilarious.
Bad. It was so. Justin Hammer was the Loki of that movie. Like, without him, that movie is complete hot garbage. It was complete hot garbage.
Sam Rockwell was genius in that.
Sam Rockwell was great in that. It introduced Don Cheadle as Rhodey. It's like, Jawan, how hard is it to actually make you happy?
And think of it this way: how better passing of a torch was it? And you want to talk about like changing characters, franchise? There was no better passing of a torch that I can ever think of. Was in the court scene when Don Cheadle walks in as James Rhodes,
beautiful.
Right? And he walks in. It's me. I'm here. Get over it. And I was like, that is genius.
That was awesome.
Okay, so let me tell you my lingering
issue. Watch Iron Man 2 again. Like that is.
Let me tell you my lingering issue.
Widow.
I had 2 lingering issues with Iron Man 2. One being the fact that we finally get an accurate War Machine Iron Man side by side, and that fight lasted 4 seconds. That was disgusting. And 2, Black Widow created single-handedly the grossest move. It started a trend with female characters doing that leg wraparound thing.
I love that.
I hate nothing more. I hate nothing more. I hate it with a passion. I hated it in that movie, and I hated it in everyone that used it.
All right,
she came into the freaking Iron Man 2 and swung her legs around that dude's neck for the first time. I lost my shit in that theater.
Yeah.
That shit was the best.
And guess what? That is an old school wrestling move called the Hurricanrana, dude. Deal with it.
Yeah, I'd rather see it from Rey Mysterio than Black Widow. Like, it started a trend, and every female character used it, and it was horrible. It's horrible. It's like you see it coming. That's what bothers me the most. You see it coming, and it's like you just, nothing I can do. Yes, move. You see, like, she had to get a head start to do it. Like there's a whole process that you could completely avoid that. I'm sorry, that's a rabbit hole for me. I really didn't like that, and I really didn't like that we finally get War Machine Iron Man back to back, ready to do some damage, and they spent more time fighting drones than the main villain. That to me is disgusting. It really is. It's disgusting. But Dom, really quickly, man, we got 5 minutes left. What movie did you enjoy more, Thor: The Dark World or Iron Man 3?
So for me, I think it's one of those. For the entirety of the movie itself, I enjoyed Iron Man 3 more. For comic book accuracy, it'd be Thor: The Dark World because of like a lot of there was a lot of comic accurate things and like a lot of mentions of things to come, like when Loki did he tell Curse I think he told Curse when he told him I see you in hell, but he was talking about, the hell where Hela is, and then, eventually we get Hela in, Ragnarok, and the mention of like the different worlds, and you can possibly see what was the giant ass lava dude in Ragnarok? Yeah, that he could see possibly his world pop up. I mean, there was a lot of cool things, but the overall Thor, like everybody else said, it didn't get really good till Ragnarok. Now this one, I do think this one is more enjoyable than the first one, because like you said, it's very hard to look at Chris Hemsworth in the first one because he looks like someone spilled paint on his face. I don't know. It was too monochrome. It looked weird. But yeah, overall though, I enjoy. The same as Tia and KJ and Patrick saying, I do enjoy in Iron Man 3 the PTSD and it's cool to see what was supposed to be like the Iron Legion at the end with all the different suits. I mean, I guess and you kind of wonder why they couldn't have been done earlier, but it's a movie. And then you get like the kid that we're eventually going to see later. They might, is he going to turn into Iron Lad at some point? We don't know, maybe. But I think there was a lot of things to enjoy. I didn't like that they did Mandarin that way. I don't think anybody really did. Like, I kind of got what they were trying to do, but if that guy and his 10 rings are supposed to be like Iron Man's greatest foe, and then it ends up just being Osama bin Kingsley,
that's so sad.
They kind of dropped the ball right there. But yeah, that's my pick is Iron Man 3.
Yeah, no, that was disgusting. There's nothing redeemable about how horribly they did that. And what's crazy about what they did with the Mandarin was, I would have been fine with you kind of throwing a curveball if in that movie, don't tell me that I have to look at shorts somewhere else. That's like when Zach put out the extended cut. Give me it in the movie or I don't really care. I would have preferred it if they had acknowledged that there was someone behind that pulling the strings that turns out to have actually been the Mandarin. Like if Shang-Chi plays on the idea of he sees that they were mocking him and maybe that's what brings him out of hiding. Because I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but the hand has been around. Like it was in Ant-Man looking to buy the Yellow Jacket experiment. It was in a few other Marvel movies to where you kind of see the Mandarin and his henchmen are behind the scenes, maybe trying to be the next big power. So I'm like, if you had played on that in the movie, I could live with that. But you didn't. You kind of just went, hey. He pulled a Ryan Johnson. He was like, hey, I know what you guys are thinking, but no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And it was stupid. You giving Pepper powers, stupid. You giving, like, all that was god-awful. But anyway, before we wrap up the show, we definitely had to do a longer episode of this. I just put on Iron Man 1. I'm going to watch 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to have a bucket in case I throw up watching 3, but I'm going to do it for you guys. I'm going to watch Iron Man 3 tonight. I'm going to do it. But, no, I want to thank KJ, Patrick, Dom, T. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me. Make sure you guys stay tuned for everything Kinda Nerdy Girls is doing. Stay tuned for Tia has Top 10. She just had an episode Sunday night. KJ, you guys put out a new episode of Kinda Nerdy Girls, right?
We did, yeah. We usually do one a week. We release on Monday, but we're actually going to be doing 2 a week and possibly even 3 while we're in quarantine because we got nothing else to do. So
absolutely. So everyone listening, there's no excuse. KJ and Kinda Nerdy Girls will have plenty of content for you guys to be listening to. So make sure you stay tuned for that. We will be, of course, posting anything that KJ posts. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for what Tia's got. Thank you all for joining me. I cannot wait to do this again. This was so much fun. I love this panel. I listened to the Freddy vs. Jason episode, and I could not stop laughing. This panel needs to happen more often. This is a good panel. But thank you guys for joining me, and we will see you guys same time, same place next week. Peace.
See ya.
Peace.
Later.
Bye, guys.
Hey guys, it's Janet Varney from Stand Against Evil, and you are listening to Geek Vibes.